Oh, there's Zoom. Ah, look at that. And then we're almost there. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hey, how about that? 2 seconds. Hang on, I've been having ridiculous technicalities.
no problem.
Da 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 da. Oh my goodness.
He does it.
Finally! Finally, we're here.
The setup is too complicated for you, man.
Yo, yo. It's just one of these things. Sometimes you come in the studio and everything was working, and you come in and everything isn't working. And you go, why isn't everything working? Why are none of my lights connected to my stream deck and switching on? You know the way stupid shit these days, like lights don't have on buttons and shit like that? Like, anyway, yeah, so I just had to reconnect all my lights to the network and the ATEM camera switcher to the network and everything else. Is the microphone working? I've had no problems with
Sounds
that.
good to me. Yeah,
Hurrah! Hurrah! Well, thank you for your patience.
it's
Good
fine.
morning. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. You good to start? Is there anything first you don't want to talk about?
Who does that? That's who does that? I remember I had a conversation with Courtney Love once, and was yes, she doesn't want to talk about this and that and the other. I was like, well, why don't I want to talk to her then? She can go fuck herself. Good lord.
Okay.
Good lord.
Akira the Don. He's got clout.
Word around town.
Yeah.
Word around town.
Um,
Word around town.
can you just start with like a kind of a quick introduction for people who don't know you, like what you're about, what you do?
I'm Akira The Don. I wrestle with technology and turn up 15 minutes late for podcasts, bringing shame upon my ancestors. And it's a beautiful day to be alive. Other than that, I make music, obviously. Well, not obviously. Kind of obviously. I make music, that's what I do. Have I got a shadow on me from something?
I think it's the
Yes.
mic. Yeah,
How is this possible? I have fucking multiple
it's fine. It's
lights
literally...
here now. Oh, God. I just added another light. I thought that adding another light would solve all my problems in this world, but it seems not. So, yeah, that's the other thing. You know, like I have problems with lights. Uh, I have I'm in Mexico in an Airbnb that I've been turning into a studio for a while, ever since I sort of lost my one in the USA without realizing that was about to happen. So every day I'm kind of piecing things back together bit by bit by bit by bit. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
Grand adventure.
looks like
Where are you?
I'm in the UK right now. So you're from the
Whereabouts?
UK, right? Like near Gatwick, like south of London.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is it noisy?
No, it's alright. Not that
Alright,
close
so
to
you're
you. Not that close.
not that close. I used to know someone who was that close. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, right by the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, jeez, just planes all the time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like some kind of like Guantanamo Bay situation. Hi.
Yeah. All right.
How's the
So
UK? I haven't been there for a while.
yeah, it's alright. I don't know. I saw you. I think I saw something you posted about it. You were like, how the U something to do with like the UK has like a monarchy and that therefore everyone's like stuck in their class and miserable to each other or something.
Well, that was the thing I noticed. Maneuvering between the UK and the USA was a difference between the attitudes of the residents of those places. Was quite stark. Um, the USA has a service culture, for example. People tip their waiters and their waitresses, and waiters and waitresses are always very, not always, are often very accommodating and enthusiastic. There's an enthusiasm in general amongst USA types that is replaced in the UK by a sort of cynicism and bitterness. There's that whole tall poppy syndrome, where someone starts to sort of raise up out of their birth designated class, they will be dragged back down by the people, by their brothers and sisters and those around them, that sort of a thing. Anyway, it dawned on me in my maneuverings between these two places was that this major sort of psychological difference is that in the UK you have a monarchy. So in the UK, on a subconscious level, everybody knows that there is a level above which they may not travel, that there is a group of humans above them who are better than them in every way, and they will never be able to be in that club and be in the part of that thing.
Because they weren't born there.
Because they're not fucking royals. Because they're not weird inbred Germanic reptiles or whatever the fuck. Whereas in the USA, they are told from birth you could be president, and president is the highest office in the land. So it's two lies, right? And they affect the people of those nations on a subconscious level, seemingly quite profoundly, because the result is as we see. There's a kind of subconscious awareness amongst people from the UK that there's a certain level that they'll never get to, so why even bother? Why even try? Why even be nice to each other?
I think you might be onto something, man. I think that's what's really interesting with your music. Like, I've heard you talk about like the subconscious a lot, and actually, for anyone who doesn't know, like the music you make so your project's called like Meaningwave, right? Mm-hmm. Did you come up with that? That's your thing entirely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's people like David Goggins, Jocko Willink, Naval Ravikant, all these guys, and you basically take that and turn into, I guess, motivational or as it says in the name, meaningful music, which I think is important because I really respect what you're doing, man. I really do like your work because a lot of I find music today is literally like as you've said before, I've seen like just people rapping about like drugs and shooting each other and stuff. It's just like. Yeah, it's just,
no, I mean
that's not good, man.
That's part of the experience. I remember when I first heard Ice Cube talking about that stuff when I was like 10 years old or something, and I'd never heard about any of that. I wasn't aware of a sort of almost apartheid situation in Los Angeles going on, that there was in Los Angeles its own sort of class system divide thing going on. And Ice Cube's records at that point in time were kind of like sort of radical Gonzo journalism. It was like the audio version of Hunter S. Thompson book. And it was telling me things. What's that?
Gonzo. What's Gonzo journalism?
That's Hunter S. Thompson's brand of journalism. The idea being that you're a part of the story.
Okay.
So you're in it. You're reporting from something that you're taking part in. That your actions have consequence on the outcome of the story. Traditional journalism is supposed to not actually affect the story whatsoever and just describe what's going on, right? Whereas the Gonzo journalism that was a part of the sort of new journalism that emerged in the 60s was sort of Tom Wolfe and who did On the Road, all that lot. The acid-taking people. People started sort of engaging with the story, which is interesting. That's a whole thing in itself. But anyway, Ice Cube and Death Certificate, the album that I shoplifted from Woolworths and adored greatly, introduced me to this whole side of human experience that I knew nothing about. So it's certainly, I'm not trying to make the case that certain subjects do not belong in music, because all subjects belong in music. What we've ended up with at this point in time is a strange situation where the content of popular music is very, very narrow and reflects only a few experiences, and those are mostly, as far as I can tell, the experiences of the teenager and the sort of college student. So it's, the people, it's drink and drugs and party and ooh, I'm in love, and ooh, she broke my heart, and doobie doobie doobie. And it's very strange because, there is so much more in the human experience, but it is not contained within music. And what's weird about that is music is the most powerful delivery mechanism for information that we know. And I worked this out very early because my schooling, my revision consisted purely of me reading my notes over ambient music and playing it as I went to sleep. And I did very well in everything that I did that with, So, and there's lots of other reasons we know music is very, very powerful, and it's used obviously to great effect in movies and propaganda and selling things and in supermarkets. And, there was Robert Cialdini has a book called Persuasion, and he did a lot of research into various persuasive ways of selling things. One thing they discovered was that in wine shops where they play French music, people are 85% more likely to buy French wine. And if you ask them why they bought the French wine, they won't say because there was French music playing. They'll say, oh, because it's good wine, or because I wanted to, or because I felt like it. And literally in the same places, they would do experiments where they would change the music and people wouldn't buy the French wine.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So you think the subconscious mind is very like... you got to be careful with it. basically.
Well, it does most of the work. The
Yeah.
subconscious mind does most of the work, and the deeper into life you go, of the more that becomes true. The deeper, one of the reasons you think that time speeds up as you get older, everyone has this idea, and people will be debating, oh, maybe the universe is speeding up. No, it's just literally that uh, your experiences, you've experienced things before, so your brain kind of fast forwards through them. Your subconscious deals with them. When you're a little kid, those first summers seem to go on forever because every experience was brand new, and your awake consciousness was aware of everything and paying attention and filing everything. The deeper into life you go, the more of these experiences have been experienced, so they're cataloged, and the subconscious deals with them. And they you sort of get fast forwarded through, so you get the impression of time speeding up. If you drive the same route to work every single day, at a certain point you'd be like, dude, I don't even remember doing that. That's so weird. What happened?
Because it's just a routine.
Yeah, exactly. Who was the book? Is it Thinking Fast and Slow? There was, some people describe it as System 1 and System 2, and there's the kind of the aware system is making decisions, but the foundations upon which those decisions are made are what is contained within the subconscious. And more often than not, the subconscious will make the decision before the forward conscious even sort of activates.
Yeah.
For example, they've done experiments where they ask people questions, and that people will give the answer, and the brain has already done the neurological activity that would suggest the answer before they say it or think it.
Reminded me of like a quote, something along the lines of, until the subconscious becomes conscious, it will control our life and we'll continue to call it luck, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
How it
Exactly.
directs people's lives.
I can't remember who that is, but I'm aware of that one. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the subconscious does most of the stuff, and the subconscious is programmed by everything around you. And if you're not consciously controlling your subconscious, then your subconscious will indeed do most of the activity in your life for you without you realizing, and it will be someone else that is programming that subconscious. I can't remember if it's Nietzsche or Carl Jung who said, the world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, it will tell you. But that is the same thing as the devil will find work for idle hands to do. That's the same thing as program will be programmed. And there are people out there who know very, very well how all of this works, and they take full advantage of that. Like most of what we now know as marketing used to be considered dark magic, and it was stuff that human beings were engaged in and worked with as far back as we have record. The court of, was it John Dee in the court of Queen Elizabeth, was deeply involved in what he considered to be dark magic, and it was mostly techniques that we now consider to be marketing. And this is so the hardcore persuasion, subconscious programming capabilities of mankind are well understood by the marketing departments of our world and poorly understood by the individuals. And that's just stupid, because these are powers that should be accessible to everybody. They're very useful. They're not like evil or anything. They're just powers, just like I could snap my finger. That's a power that I have. Also, to be able to influence a person to do a certain thing is a power that you have, and it doesn't necessarily need to be good or evil. It's just a thing that everybody can do. But while only a few people are doing it, it's a problem. Because who are these people, and what are their aims, and are they in tandem with our own?
Yeah.
Do we even know what our aims are? Have we even thought about it that much?
That reminds me of, well, a lot of, I guess, I've seen quite a lot of like high performance people who are like, they don't watch the news or anything, and I stopped watching the news like over a year ago at least. But like mainstream media is, like, I would say, similar to what we were saying with just there, how a lot of it's just like constantly negative, and people are just paranoid and, you know, get.
Well, yeah, you know the context of you know the idea of negging, right? Some people who know about persuasion are sort of pickup guys. The pickup guy world got into persuasion decades ago, because, you know, the male imperative to get chicks, that's something that's actually people put time and effort into. So there's a context, there's something within that what they call negging, right, which is where you you speak negatively to the lady to make herself think worse of herself, so she'll be more likely to stay with you or accept whatever it is you're going to offer her or what have you. So she doesn't realize her true worth and the true potential she has, or that she didn't have to be with you or whatever it is. And the media, amongst many things, it's like one giant negging operation on the populace. So aside from all the awful things it does, I stopped watching the news in 2003 and stopped reading newspapers in 2003 when I came to this realization. And I literally took my television and threw it out the window of my third-story Dalston apartment and got a projector and just downloaded stuff that I wanted to watch if I ever wanted to watch anything. And life has been great ever since. There's a bit in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is a movie from the 80s, a teen movie from the 80s. And a character in it is having something of a psychic, what do you call it, psychological break or whatever. He's fucking flipping out, basically. He's realized that his life is going to shit. And he's staring at this painting. And it's a beautiful painting, but he's just staring at it. And closer and closer he stares at it. He's just seeing the blobs. He doesn't even see that it's a full painting. And the news is much like that. You're like so deep into the detail of whatever specific thing they're showing you that day, you're not seeing the full picture. Therefore, people who read the news are less informed than those who do not. People who watch and read the news are far less informed than people who do not, because they're spending their days with their face buried in the very, very minute detail of whatever it is the architects of that system wish for you to see. So you have this vast experience and existence, and they're showing you, like through a keyhole, a tiny little set dressed room, like a tiny little room, and they've arranged everything the way they want you to see it, and they put a chair there and a picture there, and you're looking through and they're like, this is the world. It's like Plato's cave. It's like the guy's in the cave and they're strapped and there's some shadows on the wall and they think that's existence, but the shadows are some fucking puppeteer behind. Outside of the cave there is all of existence. And that's what art is for. That's what art, one of the major things that art and music do, is communicate to those in the cave that there is more outside. And they give people, it's like, no matter how deeply brainwashed you are, how deeply in that system you are, art and music, which are a sort of portal to the transcendent and the divine, can remind anybody and give anybody a sneaking suspicion that there is more. And that is why art and music, one of the many reasons art and music is so useful and powerful, and in, as far as I can tell, are the things that will save mankind from these nefarious fucks who wish to keep us all in caves.
You're unplugging them from the Matrix, man. Yeah, I mean, the people who listen to the news will say that, like, they think, like, it's funny. People say, "Oh, you're missing out on like current events and stuff," and it just always reminds me. I think it was Jordan Peterson.
Yes.
Said, like,
the answer is yes. Good.
If it's just news for a day, it's not news. I think it was Jordan Peterson, which he knows about your music, doesn't he? I saw you did an interview with him. That was something.
I've done a couple of podcasts with him, and we've been communicating since I started doing it, because I asked him if he would mind.
She's like the most popular one you've done, isn't he? Of the Meaningwave.
I don't know. It depends how you rate it. On Spotify, the Jocko records are consistently the most streamed. Currently, it moves around a bit. The shape of the society and whatever's going on in the society will dictate these things. It's interesting that I think the top 3 records have all got discipline in the title right now. The top 3 streamed records on Spotify, I think, are Discipline Equals Freedom, Discipline Gets Things Done with Joe Rogan and Jocko, and There Must Be Discipline, indeed. Yeah. So really, it seems that people want discipline, so God bless them. Peterson did say that the Greeks used to talk about this. If it doesn't matter in 5 years, don't let it bother you for 5 minutes.
The Stoics.
Scott Adams has this thing that whenever something occurs, give it 48 hours before having any kind of reaction. Everything's so tooled up right now to create this system wherein, sort of information or stories or ideas are sort of shoved out to everybody, and then everybody's encouraged to instantly react instantly, and then sort of judge and damn and operate immediately. So like, here's some information right now. Everyone's got to give their opinion on Twitter and Facebook and wherever else. Now we've got to decide whether this person is cast out of society. We need to decide whether we need new laws. We need to decide this to retool the shape of our society instantly based on this new thing, which oftentimes was just created.
Especially with this era of like short form content, like TikToks and YouTube Shorts and everything. Like that really doesn't help.
Well, everything and just memes. I don't know how many. It'd be interesting to see the stats of how many people ever read an article versus those who read the headline versus those who see the headline cropped into a meme format. And I mean, increasingly, I was getting my assistant Jason people will send me memes or things or quotes. Someone sent me a motivational Freddie Mercury quote where he said something about the glory of music, but soon music will be created by machines and there will be no soul. And I'm like, go check this out for me. And 9 times out of 10, these things will be fake. And that Freddie Mercury one was fake, for example. 9 times out of 10, whatever quote you see circulating that you're so keen to share yourself because it's kind of says what you think, they're usually fake. Whether it's fucking, including like I see fake Peterson quotes all the time, and I know because I've spent so many hours listening to Peterson's stuff in the context of making the records and listening. I know the quotes. Like, I know what he said. So when you see something that's a little close to what he said, but different enough that it means something different, you're like, holy shit. That happens a lot. But this is the, again, goes back to the tools of dark magic that were used in the court of Elizabeth that are just marketing. If you can get somebody to say something, then they would rather continue to believe it true, even when presented with opposing evidence, than go against their sort of self-image, the self-image of themselves, which they like to think of themselves as being correct, as right, as not easily foolable, as smart, particularly publicly. So if you want to quit smoking, a smart thing to do is to very publicly say that you've quit smoking. And then you're a lot more likely to, because you don't want to be sort of shamed. You don't want people to think you go back on your word or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sell someone a car, if you can get them to say, I like the car, I want the car, they're like 90% more likely to buy the car, because their self-image now says, yes, I like this car. I'm the guy who likes this car. This is me. So if you can get people to react to every single thing that happens and give an opinion and type out, I think this, they're then going to hold to that. They would rather hallucinate an imagined reality than admit the truth and go against their own self-image. Awesome. So we're in this weird situation now. Well, this explains right now why you have this phenomenon where people, billions and millions of people, will believe something utterly ridiculous that's been completely debunked because they were so into it when it first came out, because it aligned with their political interests or it aligned with whatever team they thought they were on. Everyone's on these teams now. This is why you can't join groups. This is why it's stupid. You don't want to join any group. The second you join a group, you're a prison of that group's ideology. You're a prison of that group's frameworks. And you don't want to be a prisoner of anyone's ideology or framework, because if you have a thought that goes outside of that, but you can't. You're not allowed. If new information comes along that's dangerous to said group, you're not allowed to accept it into your own paradigm, or you're out of the group. The more time you spend in a group, the more you need that group, so on and so on and so on and so forth. It's stupid and dangerous. Stay the fuck away from groups. Groucho Marx. You don't want to be in any club that would have you as a member. It's just a trap.
Yeah, I'd say especially with these like social media algorithms, you have people getting echo chambers where all they see is just people reaffirming their own beliefs. So that just strengthens it in their mind even more.
Yeah, that calcifies that prison. That calcifies those prison bars that have been erected in the mind of the individual. And then the individual cannot accept things outside of that group's dogma. Which is, for obvious fucking reasons, is a nightmare scenario. Because it can only lead to conflict. And it can only lead to bloody conflict. It can only lead to utter horror, because you get in the situation that we see now so very blatantly, where people consider their enemies to be evil. And if you're completely assured of your rightness and that the other side is evil, and you see this on both sides of the contemporary Western political framework, they both think the other is evil, completely evil, like satanic, demonic. Even the side that doesn't believe in God considers the other side so evil that whatever you do against them is justified. Both sides at this point are getting to that point. So whatever you do, so it's okay to lie, for example. It's completely okay to lie about them. It's completely okay to frame them. It's completely okay to harm them. It's completely okay to destroy them financially. It's completely okay to destroy their lives. It's completely okay to anything is okay because they're evil.
Yeah, because
so because you're good, you're working in for
society. You're doing everyone a favor.
Yeah, everything you do is correct. It's like, well, if you could kill baby Hitler, you'd kill baby Hitler, and they consider everybody to be baby Hitler who's not on their side. Everything awful that's ever been done by human beings was done by human beings completely convinced of their rightness. It wasn't done by maniacal, cackling, pantomime villain types going, everyone thought they were doing the right thing. And the more right they thought they were, the more fucked up shit they did. And this continues to be the case and will always be the case. And if you get into a situation where people are being calcified into very, very specific groups and frameworks, then you're just going to get more of that and worse. So that's good.
Yeah, that was good, man. You just went off.
That's joyful. That's a joyful situation. But what's cool about that is we know it, and it has always been the case, and we are aware of it, and there are ways of combating it. Certainly, the part of the human experiment we're in right now is an epic part, because suddenly you can do that on a global scale. Previously, it was localized. So one of the horrifying, terrifying aspects of the internet is that you can essentially, on a global level, do that. On a global level, you can fracture people into these opposing groups, and then you can strengthen the opposition of them and just keep cranking it up and cranking it up and cranking it up. But at the same time, as is always the case, within that which was created to enslave us are the tools of our ultimate liberation. And again, that is always the case and always has been the case.
What would you say those kind of tools are? Art and music?
Well, obviously art and music, but then say the weaponized dissemination of art and music on a global scale, which was never previously available. What was previously, if you wanted to make music, couple hundred years ago, you needed to be making it for the king, right? You needed to be specifically, the king needed to be a patron
yeah,
of you.
That's the word.
Is that how you would put it? And you would, write a song about how great the king was.
Yeah,
you'd sing it at the court, and maybe you'd travel around the country singing it a bit as well. But like, if you wanted to get your fucking music out there, if you wanted to get your shit cracking, that's pretty much how you did it. You need to find some rich motherfucker who would pay you to make some shit about how cool they are.
And if you didn't, right? if they didn't like it, it's just bang, you're gone.
Yeah, they didn't like it. Off with your fucking head.
They'll go find someone else.
Get gelded or some shit. They'd fucking pull your larynx out. And then fast forward a little bit later, and then suddenly you've got the phonogram, and you've got recording studios, and they're very, very expensive. If you want to get in a recording studio, you're going to need a rich motherfucker that owns a record label that's going to pay for you to go in there. And there's not going to be many of you who are allowed to do that. And those of you that are allowed to do that, if your record is actually going to be released and people are going to hear it, you'd better not be saying anything that those people disagree with. This is what happened to me, for example. I signed to Interscope, which was at the time the largest major label in the world, and made a record for them. And then they said, well, we don't like what you're talking about on this song. You need to change the words. And I said, no. And they said, well, we're not putting it out then. And I said, well, fine. And I took the money I'd gotten from getting one of my songs in a movie called My Super Ex-Girlfriend and bought the album back and went independent, and have been sort of independent ever since.
What was that? What was that about, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, it was a bunch of things. One of the songs was about how the housing market was about to collapse, and one of the songs was called Bankers, and was about the sort of like fixed nature of the international banking system. Another song was called Thanks for All the AIDS, and was partly about hypocritical pop star types doing Live Aid events that never changed anything, and another one was about the deliberate sort of destruction of economies by CIA, etc. type people.
Interesting.
Another one was about how they were going to be deliberately trying to turn the USA into a third world country by the mid 2020s. And so, it was quite neat. But yeah, they were like, no, fuck this. We like that song you wrote about, oh, what a glorious thing. It's a nice day riding around on a bicycle. What the fuck, Akira the Don? Anyway, but the point being, that was until that was just like 15 years ago or whatever. Suddenly we're in this situation now where anybody can create art about anything, and it can go all over the world in 13 seconds. And they haven't yet been able to clamp down on that. That is still currently the case, that you can do that.
Permissionless leverage, as Naval talks about.
Yeah, exactly. And that applies to everything. It's not just art and music, it's also any information. It's any kind of tools that one would need to fight back against a system which seeks to create an inescapable global digital gulag. The tunnel out of the digital global gulag is also there for everybody to scrape out with the hypothetical global digital toothbrush or whatever the fuck.
Do you still think that's
What's that movie?
Not sure. I think I'm too.
Thinking about a movie I used to watch with my grandfather, and it was a bunch of prisoners of war, and was it Charlton Heston or something? No, it wasn't Charlton Heston. It's one of those old-time British movies, and they're escaping from a Nazi prison. They're like digging tunnels with toothbrushes and shit like that, and then they get out and they jump on a motorbike and jump over the guards with a anyway.
I think I'm too young for this. Do you?
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, like, do you think that's still on track? Do you still think the USA is going to be a third world country in the 2020s?
I live in a so-called third world country, and it's a lot nicer than than bits of the USA that I lived in.
Mexico, right?
Yeah, I'm in Mexico, and honestly, a lot of where I am is in a lot better state than Los Angeles.
I've heard a lot of people, people who were living in America moving across to Mexico, because, like, one guy I heard saying was like, well, what's so great about America? Well, there's still sunny weather, there's still beaches. It's just across the border and the laws are different.
Yeah, I mean, I love the USA, and I always will, and I love everything it stands for. It's currently captured. I mean, it's always been captured to a degree, but there's always a war going on. But certainly, just in the 8 years I lived in Los Angeles, I watched it absolutely disintegrate. And it was deliberately done. I lived on Hollywood Boulevard for a while, the glittering avenue boulevard of broken dreams. It's now got homeless encampments all over it. It was the case that was sort of confined to certain areas, and that's just sort of spread everywhere now. Now it's like people don't really walk in Los Angeles at all. They just get cabs from party to party. Otherwise, they would be having to deal with crackheads and what have you. San Francisco is far worse, and like this is, these are the coastal elite areas. That's not even mentioning what they've done to Middle America, which were formerly proud homes of manufacturing, and all of that has been sent off to China, and the people have nothing now except for fentanyl, which comes from China. So it's already been done. What they've done to the USA is despicable. It's horrible. Happily, the people of the USA are epic and brave, and I think they will. I don't see them being so easily defeated. I'm not and also I'm not. I didn't leave because I was like, right, fuck this place, gone. I left to go and get a visa.
You got locked out, didn't you? Visa.
And I got locked out. Yes, exactly, because the current regime has deemed those who've not been vaccinated unfit for entry to the country.
It's crazy, man.
No, that's a whole ridiculousness in itself. So yeah, I love the USA. I always will love the USA. The USA has given us so much, and continues to, and will continue to. But just on that question, yes, USA is third world country by the mid 2020s. I think they're almost ahead of schedule.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but you did say that was almost a blessing in disguise. I think somewhere I saw that you kind of got, I guess, yeah, locked out because then you're like, oh, Mexico's actually really nice. Or when you in
Oh,
like
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Puerto Rico or Costa Rica or somewhere as well at one point.
Yeah, I've been over there a couple of times this year. That was to go to the Mexican embassy and get my Mexican visa. But it means I got to check out Costa Rica, and I had a wonderful time there and met some wonderful people. Yeah, I mean it's beautiful here. It's a paradise. It's a huge psychic relief to not be under constant bombardment. The Since 2012, and there's different reasons why, or theories as to why it might be, but since 2012 they really ratcheted up the division stuff. They took things that barely existed. I remember I was in Los Angeles. Actually, different ways of thinking about this. I remember Tyler, the Creator, coming over to London and saying something. Someone had said something about racism, and he laughed and he said, "That's that gay shit. Maybe our grandparents used to worry about. We don't think about that shit. That's like gay shit," said Tyler, the Creator. And it really was a case that in sort of 2011, like you'd wander around Los Angeles and I was out there talking to people, and all the kids were all hanging out, whatever sort of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, everyone's just hanging out, chilling. If you go to the same places now, they now have like segregated areas for different races and genders and this, that, and the other in those very same places. You have them in universities now. They've brought back segregation, these people. If you look at a Google search graph for like racism post 2012, it does this massive fucking spike. The words of, if you do a search for like words like racism within news media, massive fucking spike. And if you remember in 2012, both sides of the political spectrum had finally come to the realization that the powers that be were not working in their best interests. And you had the Occupy Wall Street movement and you had the Tea Party movement operating at the same time, which were both these massive proletariat, populist, anti-banking government movements that were essentially coming together. They had the same issues, they had the same concerns, they'd come to the same realization. And it is no fucking coincidence that they were all pitted against each other almost immediately. Suddenly it's like, okay, let's everybody talk about our immutable characteristics and how evil everyone else is. Let's define everybody by their skin color. Let's define everybody by their gender and pit those against each other. White people are evil. Men are evil. Patriarchy, blah, 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 blah. And you create this thing where people are just screaming at each other when they just started coming together against their eternal oppressor.
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so let's have men and women who actually historically have worked very well together and have strengthened each other. Let's have them against each other now, so no one's got time to go, oh yeah, those guys stole all our money. No, forget about those. He's got an Adam's apple and is therefore evil. This person's skin is this color, so they're an oppressor. Meanwhile, anyway. That's been an amusing thing to witness from the position of being able to see it happening, because I was old enough to have seen a few things move around before, and then you get to really see this play out and people fall for it and people get really, really wound up and then oh my lord, like we were through all this, we were doing other things, we were on our way to Mars, and they just stuck us back in the fucking Stone Ages, like grabbing at each other's throats.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember why I got onto that. I was halfway to making a point about something else, but anyway.
Who else knows about your music? I know Jordan Peterson obviously does. Jocko, Joe Rogan, Naval. I'm pretty sure they all do, right? Does anybody else?
Anyone?
They all know.
Well, anyone that's in it, yeah, because I would.
He's got clout.
I go, hey. Well, yeah, and also the whole, asking people's permission. Would you mind if I made a record sampling your voice and released it?
Oh, is that what you do? I guess.
Well, yeah, there is that whole side of things. It's rude not to. You would have thought. It's rude not to. But yeah, I mean, people know it. It's one of these things that's. amongst certain kinds of people who are paying attention and actually care about what goes into their subconscious, Meaningwave is highly valued. So a lot of people that are working at a high level, Meaningwave enjoy us because it works, and they pay attention to what goes in their brains, which is why they're doing well. That's kind of rule number one. If you're a high achieving individual in the world, it means you've been paying attention to what goes into your system, what goes into your subconscious, what goes into your belly, what goes into your skin. You know what I mean? All that type of thing. It's kind of impossible to be a high performing, high achieving bad motherfucker without being aware of that stuff and without paying attention to that stuff. Very occasionally someone might fluke into it, but you can't stay there for very long without being aware.
Yeah, if you're just consuming junk.
Maintaining awareness.
It's like I was saying earlier, a lot of high performing people I know don't watch the news. They eat healthy, they work out. It's like, it's not like...
It's almost impossible to be a high performing person whilst consuming garbage, whether it be from the news or McDonald's or whatever the fuck. That's almost impossible.
No, I think
you've seen, one of the things we saw over the past 4 or 5 years, 3 years, since the whole Tom Hanks disease thing, when everybody started to out themselves, you suddenly saw who was smart and who was not smart. And you might consider smarts to be the ability to apply intelligence to your life and to apply intelligence to fields outside of the field of, say, your specific realm domain. So we have a lot of people who you thought were intellectuals, but then they were completely fooled by the persuasion efforts of the machine over the past 3 years. And then you've seen these very, very public meltdowns from people who were completely suckered. Actually, I mean, you saw it before. You saw the people who got sort of Trump derangement syndrome really bad. And it's like, you're smarter than that. Surely you're smarter than this. I thought you were a really, really smart guy, but it seems not. So we've seen a lot of our public intellectuals. We've seen that they're actually not that smart. And that's been a really useful thing. Over everything that's happened over the past sort of since 2012, the escalation of insanity of 2012, I do think the Mayans were correct in their 2012 prophecy, because 2012 was the year that everything went fucking doolally. Whether we went through a portal or whether it was the combined energies of the ancestors or whatever the fuck it was, but shit went crazy in 2012, and it's still going crazy now. But yeah, what's been great about that whole period is that people let you know who they were. So we know who everyone is now. We know who's going to get suckered. We know who's a shill. We know who's dumb. We know who's smart. We know who's able to discern. We know who has integrity. We know who does not have integrity, and so on and so forth.
So I think it's interesting you talk about like intellectuals and who's smart, because I can't remember who it was, but someone said like the only useful test of intelligence is if you can get what you want out of your life. And I think a lot of people think some people are smart just because they, I don't know, studied in university or they know a lot about a specific topic. But it's like smart, I think, is more of like an entire worldview, like wide, I guess, open-minded.
Yeah, smart is being able to apply that to your life, like you're saying there, and get a desired outcome. Intelligence is useless if you can't apply it to anything practical and useful outside of like the immediate domain of your study or what have you. That in itself becomes even more dangerous, because you have someone who's spent a lot of time in university being indoctrinated, and they can, regurgitate a lot of things that they have had drilled into them, but they're completely useless in every other manner of life, and they have no idea when they're about to get mugged. They don't have no idea that the person sweet-talking them is going to fucking stab them in the throat or what have you. They're completely blind to the obvious that, like, some guy who sweeps a road in Durham or what have you knows fucking obviously. Well, like, look, obviously that guy's about to stab you in the face, dickhead. Like, look, you can tell. But the super indoctrinated intelligentsia person has no idea they're about to be stabbed in the throat. All they know about is the very direct field of their expertise. But there is a thing called the halo effect. You aware of the halo effect? That is where...
Sure, maybe. I don't know if it's what it's called that.
That's where, say, you got a doctor, right? And so, therefore, they're a doctor. So you listen to their opinions on politics or sports or window cleaning. Stuff that they know fucking nothing about, but because they're a doctor, well, like they must be really smart. So you listen to them on everything. So you see, they wheel out people like Bill Nye on US TV, and they call him the science guy, and they put him in a lab coat and have him give his opinions on politics and things of that nature. And you're supposed to listen to this motherfucker because he's the science guy and has the halo effect going on. So you're supposed to listen to him on everything. So that is the problem with institutionalized intelligentsia, is they have this halo effect thing applied, and then you have them wheeled out to give their opinions on everything, and then people listen to them, and they really shouldn't be listening to them because they don't know fuck all about what they're talking about. Maybe they know about this specific field of their direct expertise, but again, if they've come out of a university, they've been institutionalized, and they've been in that thing we were talking about earlier. They've been in a club. They've been in a framework that rejects things outside of the framework. If something comes along and challenges that which is part of the establishment mode, it will be rejected, whether it's true or not. If it's challenging it, fuck it right off. You see this thing happening currently with people getting really angry that Graham Hancock has got a television program, because they're really angry about the idea of somebody outside of the establishment suggesting that perhaps the establishment does not have all the answers. Guardian called him the most dangerous man on television. Like, fucking hell, Graham Hancock is punk rock in 2022. That's amazing. A fucking sort of alternative underground archaeologist type writer guy is the most dangerous man on television, according to the system, because it's making people question authority. And if there's one thing these cunts don't like, it's anyone questioning authority, because they consider themselves to be the authorities and therefore don't want to be fucking questioned.
Yeah.
And again, this goes back to what we were saying earlier. This is the glory of living now, because of all the tools, while there is hitherto unimaginable opportunity for oppression and domination of the human will, there is also hitherto unimaginable opportunity for rejection of that, for transcendence of that. And that's why one of the many reasons why this is an epic moment to be alive, and there's nowhere else I would personally rather be.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's just making me think of how people, like we were saying earlier, people will like try and like drag you down, keep you where you are. Like if you hear a lot of people, they basically take financial advice from people who are broke. Like they want to start a business. They're like, oh no, that's risky. Don't do that. And it's like, well, you think these guys know what they're talking about? Like that's not a good idea, man.
Exactly.
And as you were saying with
that's
like,
major key.
Yeah, as you were saying with like, there's loads of opportunity now as well as like limitation. Like how have you kind of, I guess, metamorphosed over the years? Like, because how old is the Meaningwave?
5 years.
5 years. So I'm just wondering
Cinco años.
how these people like Jordan Peterson, Jocko, Goggins, how they've like impacted you and like changed your mindset.
Oh, well, they all have. I mean, every time I make a record, that's essentially me doing that program in the Matrix where he's like, I know Kung Fu.
Just downloading.
Like downloads a thing. So every time I make a record, that's me taking that idea, information, technique, mindset, whatever the fuck it is, that's me taking that and imbuing it with that weaponized form of information imbuement, or whatever the fuck you might want to call it, which is Meaningwave, that psychotechnology that is Meaningwave. So every record I have done, that's been me assimilating that process, that idea, whatever it is. So each one of them is changing. So me now is, how many Meaningwave records are there? I think there's like 500 songs and 50 something albums, I think it is.
It's a lot.
And each one of those, is a piece of what I am now, that I was not before, you know.
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Indeed, exactly. So I'm standing a lot higher now than I was previously. That's one way of thinking about it. My vantage point is now much greater. I can see way more of the horizon. I can see way more of the fullness of the view, as Alan Watts put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say you were kind of in that kind of, when you were younger, in that kind of more, I guess, would you say controlled state? I don't know, listening to the news and doing all these, I guess, negative habits and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, everybody has negative habits. Like I said, I rejected all that stuff very early. But I was obviously still a victim of it to a degree, and all sorts of programs. For example, I had terrible relationship with money for the longest time. It took me a long, long time to fix that. Mainly due to like the abundance of socialist programming I was subjected to by my beautiful parents as a kid, with all the fucking Billy Bragg records and other such sort of,
Get it out.
yeah, you like, but years, and I loved Billy Bragg, and I loved his beautiful voice and his. But I realized he was something of a hypocrite in later life when I sort of met him and spoke with him about a few things, and realized that he was a terrible hypocrite. But like, yeah, so I rejected the news from very early, and I rejected television and things like that. I was lucky we didn't have a TV in the house till I was, I don't know, 12 or something, so I just read a lot of books. And so when TV came along, I saw it for what it was. It was so ridiculous. Like just these people sat there with loads of funny makeup on, sort of lying really obviously, and the adverts just seemed so silly and obviously lying. The whole thing was just like, it was just lies. It just seemed really comical to me. So I rejected it from early. And I was always one of these that didn't like or questioned authority heavily. Whether it was teachers, whether it was my church, whoever it was, whether it was police or whatever. So I was at odds with authority from very, very young. That led to me leaving home very early when I was 15 and having all sorts of adventures and situations that showed me very early the true nature of the world, the true nature of the power structure of the world, the true nature of man. So I was aware of all that stuff from very, very early, for good or ill.
Yeah.
And I would say for good, because it gave me a head start on a lot of stuff. But yeah, like you said, but still, because of musical programming, I was unable to fully act upon which I knew, because I was trapped in this lack poverty mindset where I thought that money was inherently evil, and that anyone who had lots of money must be obviously evil and corrupt in some way, and that wealth could only be generated from the exploitation of others, and so on and so forth. I had this completely inverse, upside down, anti-human, anti-actual progress mindset that had been put there by pop songs. And it was me thinking I was smart and thinking I was listening to smart people music. Oh, I'm not listening to that dumb stuff. I'm listening to I'm listening to Dead Prez and Billy Bragg and smart guy shit. That actually turned out to be fucking retarded and deeply unuseful, and took me decades and decades to deprogram myself from.
I feel like, yeah, Naval talks a lot about ethical wealth creation.
Yes.
So, yeah, is Akira the Don financially free?
I wouldn't say fully free. A lot more free than he's ever been in his life. And a lot more free than most people he knows. But I'm not there yet. I've got a lot of catching up to do on that regard. Bear in mind, I only made that Naval record like 2-3 years ago. And it was that Naval record that was primarily the major thing in deprogramming myself from the previous indoctrination, corruption, destruction that have been visited upon me.
I get the feeling like you really like what you do. So does it not really feel like work to you? Because I think, yeah, I was watching a video from you earlier, and you were saying how, I think it was like a live stream with your family or something around Christmas. It was like, there is, for you, it's not really work-life balance. It's like life balance, because you just love what you do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I mean, everyone should do this. Like, find work that is so in keeping with your true nature that it does not feel like work. That it's just what you do.
Looks like
what you need to do and what you must do.
It feels like play to you, but looks like work to others. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
That's Naval.
Exactly. Yeah, and that should be the aim of all sovereign individuals. Because then you have this wonderful situation is that the more people are doing that, the better everything is, because everyone's operating at this higher level. People are doing things out of desire and want and playfulness and love, rather than obligation and bitterness and resentment. Things that are created out of bitterness and resentment contain that with them. There's no removing that.
And desperation,
You know?
I'd say as well.
And
Probably.
desperation. Yes, definitely, very much so. Something that is created with those things in conditions of those things existing will contain those things in it. Again, back to that subconscious thing we were talking about. You might not necessarily consciously be aware, but your subconscious will be aware. And your subconscious will judge you accordingly and will treat you accordingly. So if your subconscious thinks you're the kind of person who, for example, I don't know, like buys sweatshop shit or whatever, or that buys stuff, bad food or whatever the fuck it is, your subconscious will think of you as that kind of a person and will treat you accordingly, will make decisions on your behalf accordingly, will lead you to situations accordingly, will damn you accordingly.
That's what I think people need to understand a lot, because you don't know what your subconscious mind is doing. Like that, like by definition, you're not sure what's going on in there. So I am very careful with like what I consume, a lot more than I used to be. Yeah. So, like you're saying, just gotta listen to Meaningwave. Program yourself. There must be discipline.
Yeah. Program or be programmed. It's pretty much that simple. If you are not doing it, someone or something else is. That's why they call it demonic possession. That's why they call booze. I remember my grandma telling me this. That's why they call it spirits. There's this idea that you get so blackout drunk that your actual spirit is too weak to be able to hang on to the the mecha suit that is your body, and other things will get in there. So when you have a blackout and you've been out and you've acted like a complete twat and done a load of stuff that you would never do in real life, well, it wasn't you, it was a spirit. It was a demon going for a joyride with your body because you were not paying attention enough to keep your own self in that thing. So something else took control of it. And you might think about that as a metaphor for life in general. If you're not fully in control of the mech suit that is your body, if you're not in complete control of this whole thing that is you, something else, however, say you're exercising 95% of control over yourself, over your subconscious, over your being, that still leaves 5% that some other motherfucker's doing. There's still 5% of you that's being controlled by something else. You don't even know what that is. Might be individual, might be a demonic entity. You don't fucking know. So, you really want to be bearing that in mind. The more and that's what happens when people become truly, truly great, is someone takes complete control over themselves. And then the way Stevie Wonder would put it is he would say that he made himself, into this great tool, into this glistening tool, and then handed that to God, then opened himself up to God, and then God wrote all those songs through him, is how he puts it, right? And it's the way people talk about it. You might think about it. It's like if you can take complete control over your being, and then give that being over to God, that's when truly beautiful, great, transcendent things happen on this earth. Because that force of creation that some will call God and others will call other things can only work at its greatest with the greatest of tools. You know what I mean? If I'm going to carve the Michelangelo and all I've got is a rock, it's not going to come out as good as if I had a really nice chisel. You know what I mean? So you want to turn yourself into a really nice chisel, thus that God may do wonderful things in this world with the really good chisel that is you. You know what I mean? If you're just a fucking shitty chisel, the devil will find work for a shitty chisel. You could take a shitty chisel, you could smack someone over the head, you can stab a fucking tire, you can cause all sorts of mayhem with an ill-defined, rusty tool. So if you just have a world full of ill-defined, rusty tools, you can imagine what kind of a world you will get.
Yeah, they can't make good things.
Yeah.
Would you
what good can be done with...
I was going to say, would you say you're religious? Because you seem quite, I guess, spiritual.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was religious because I consider religions to be like clubs,
Yeah.
So I'm not currently at the point where I'm willing to give myself over to one of these clubs. I have huge amounts of respect for a lot of these because something like Orthodox Christianity or something that's been very, very specifically studying. So, like, one of the reasons I did the Peterson records was like, rather than making a rap album like I used to, was like, who the fuck am I to talk about these things? I find it very condescending when some rapper starts lecturing on you. You're like, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you, Mr. Rap Guy, telling me what to do? You don't know shit. You know what I mean? But then I go, oh, here's Peterson. He's been thinking about this issue for 40 years. So sampling him talking about this issue, that comes from a place of authority. It won't be cringe. You'll accept it. You won't reject it. And so then some of these religions that have been operating for thousands and thousands of years, or hundreds of years, or thousands of years, really, really studying certain things. That's not to be taken lightly. And the matter of the divine and transcendent is not to be taken lightly. So I have huge amounts of respect for a lot of these systems. I am personally not at the point where I'm ready to give myself up to one of them specifically. I'm currently still at the stage of my existence where I am discovering as much about the fullness of the view side of things. I'm looking at things from as many different angles as I can in order to get a clearer picture of a thing. And perhaps after I've done that for a little while longer, I'll be ready to surrender myself to something in order to, because there's a certain level that you cannot get to unless you surrender yourself to.
You think you can't? What do you mean by a level that?
Well, okay, so a sort of a level of discipline and understanding can only be reached by surrendering yourself fully to the means of reaching it. So whether you're going to go through the Zen Buddhist method, or you're going to go through the Orthodox Christian method, or whatever method it is, in order to get the maximum out of it, you've got to go all in on it. If you want to really, really like meet God, you're going to need to go sit in a fucking cave, or whatever the fuck it is you've got to do, with some seriousness for a serious amount of time, with a serious amount of dedication, with a serious amount of intensity of purpose and will.
Okay.
Some things happen accidentally for a second occasionally, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I get what you mean. And is that something you said you were? Is that something you would try and do, or I guess like?
I'm just saying that it's not something I'm doing right now, but I'm not saying I would never. Yeah, currently what I'm doing is transcribing as much of the readily available wisdom of the ages as I may into that most sticky of delivery mechanisms, which is music. And that is my occupation and purpose, and that's what takes up the fullness of my being, is doing that. That does not leave time for huge amounts of sort of regionalized religious study or anything of that matter. It might at some point I might go, okay, now I'm going to make the Orthodox Christian album series and go do that for 10 years. I might go do the Zen Buddhist thing for 10 years, whatever the fuck. We shall see.
Yeah.
How about you?
What about me? Am I religious?
Do you ascribe to any specific system?
I think it's like similar to what you said before about people kind of label themselves, put them in boxes. Like, I used to think like kind of religion was almost kind of dumb. Like, nah, there's no way that's a big man just sitting up there. But I think it's partly because of the way they taught it at school. But recently I've been more open to it. That I kind of I kind of believe more in like, I guess, the power of the universe, almost like, I guess you could call it Mother Nature. I think the Stoics.
Well, that universe is a way of saying God for people who are afraid to say God.
Yeah,
that's all that is.
I think that's just because for me, God was always like a person. So
yeah, I had the same thing. I had a Catholic upbringing, and they could never answer any of my questions. Like, well, why has that person got nothing? Or why has he got da-da-da and we don't have a washing machine? Or why does bad things happen to these, or whatever the fuck you say, whatever kid questions you have. They can never answer any of them. I went to church one day wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt and they kicked me out. I didn't understand why. This seemed retarded to me. But when you realise that the whole new atheist movement operates in the same manner as a kind of like angsty teenager, and that whole mode of being is a very sweet but immature, angsty teenage rebellion way of looking at the world, and it's already by this point, sort of raged itself out and seems kind of silly and sad. Uh, I believe in God. God seems obvious to me at this point. As far as like which earthly structure that has been studying this has the best framework through which to navigate it, because that's all it is you just think of it as an operating system.
They're all related.
Through which to access. Yeah. So think of it as an OS, right? It's like, you're going to go with Linus, or you're going to go with Linux, or you're going to go with Mac OS, or you're going to go with Windows, whatever the fuck it is. Mm-hmm. So it's all the same stuff that's there, but it's how are you organizing it, how are you accessing it, who's been studying whichever aspect of it most correctly, so on and so forth. Like I was saying, music and art are gateways to the capital T truth, gateways to that transcendent and divine, which language cannot begin to describe. And we have this funny thing in our contemporary society where a bunch of people have decided to say, if we cannot describe it with our crude Neanderthal language, it's not real and doesn't exist. Which will be looked back upon as the most foolish and childish and narcissistic and silly and sad and self-destructive mindset that a creature possessed.
Humans are smart, but we don't know everything.
Humans are smart, they don't know everything. Humans know nothing compared to that which is. And again, I keep going back to this. That's what music is an intonation of how much more there is. Like that feeling, that thing that you can intuit from truly great art, from moments of transcendence that are reached normally only through music and art, sometimes through meditation or ritual or communication. That vastness is so much more than that which is. That's why people like the psychedelic experience, because the psychedelic experience gives you a tangible gateway into that. Oh shit, there is so much more than I understand. Oh shit, this thing that my eyes are transcribing for me, that's not what it is. It's way more than that. But if my eyes were to allow in even a fraction of the information that is, I would go insane. I would go instantly insane. I would claw out my own eyes and rip off my genitals and weep and die. There's so much more than that which we can quantify. And that's cool.
I'm just watching the time, man. It's been like an hour. I don't want to take too much of your time because.
Oh shit! There you go. There you go. Perfect. Perfect.
We're done. Or we want to keep going, guys?
No, that's good. That's great. That's wonderful. Unless you got anything else you needed to know very specifically.
I was wondering, like, where does the name Akira the Don come from?
That was because I had Akira, and Akira I took from the anime. Mm-hmm. Because I saw that when I was like 10 or something, and it changed me. It fundamentally changed me. In many people's lives, there will come a point in their development where a specific singular artwork will speak to them in some way, and will, again, it's what I was just talking about. It gave me this incredible intonation of a greater existence. 2001: A Space Odyssey did it for a lot of people from the 70s generation. You speak to a lot of people who create stuff of any value or import. A lot of who were born at that time, they'll tell you they saw 2001: A Space Odyssey and it changed them. 2001: A Space Odyssey was created as a deliberately alchemical, transformative work in the manner of the works of Shakespeare or the Sistine Chapel. It was deliberately created to change those who witnessed it. You know this because 2001: A Space Odyssey is about human consciousness transcending, growing, expanding, etc. Every time you see the monolith in the movie, consciousness takes this big old leap. First you see the ape pick it up and pick up you see the monolith, he picks up the tool, he suddenly has the awareness of technology, he becomes a cyborg, goes on that journey. You see the guys on the moon, The only time you see that monolith and consciousness does not obviously change in surrounding humans is at the very beginning, where the monolith is in space and it goes on its side and it flies through the screen. It is you going through the monolith. It is you who's being transformed. That's what was happening with that movie, and it worked on a great deal of people. For me, it was Akira, which was created in a similar fashion. I took the name Akira, and I was in a rap group, and we were on tour, and we were only allowed to communicate in rap. There was the game we were playing. You stop at a service station, get a sandwich. You had to order it in rap. They were all communicating in rap. I got very good at it. I declared myself Akira the Don at one point during one of these moments. In a moment of blissful transcendence, I declared myself to be Akira the Don because I was, and then I was forevermore. And now that's what everybody calls me. It's particularly funny because that's what literally everyone calls me here in Mexico. And I'll be walking around the street and they shouted at me. And they shouted at me when I'm in CrossFit and things of that nature. Go, Akira the Don! You know.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a powerful name because you have to live up to it. You know, that's why I called my son Hercules.
Yeah, I saw that. It's like,
Words have
cool.
power. Words have meaning. Words have great power. And that which you use to describe a thing, you have this chicken or the egg situation. It's like, is it that way? Is it called that because that's what it was, or is that what it is because it was called that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got tons of questions. I feel like I could ask you all day, but one more, and then we're done. Because I know you got things to be doing, man. At what point?
God happens to be.
Yeah, they don't make themselves.
No.
At what point did you decide that Akira the Don had clout? Because that is a classic intro. Like my brother, me and my brother, like that tag is so good, man. Akira the Don, he's got clout.
Yeah, that's one of those.
When did you come up with that?
That was very, very early. I came up with that, and that was just chopping a little bit. But that's something because this goes what I was just saying. You can decide. I remember when Marilyn Manson was coming around on the scene, and he called himself the God of Fuck one day, and then everything I read would refer to him as that. I'd read a magazine article, radio thing or whatever, everyone would go, Marilyn Manson, the God of Fuck. I was like, oh shit, you can just call yourself something and people will do that, and then you'll become that. That's interesting. So when I was first rapping, I called myself the Rap Morrissey on one song, and then all the press started calling me the Rap Morrissey, and the Enemy did an article about me, and they said Akira the Don, he's the Rap Morrissey, and so on and so forth. I was like, you literally can't just say a thing and then everyone will go along with it, you know. So at the early point of Meaningwave, it was like, okay, so I've invented this new thing, and I want it to, you know, I want to be able to sample whoever I want to sample, and that work and be good and stuff. So going Akira the Don, you know, if someone's got clout, then you want to be associated with somebody who's got clout. And it's a good thing for them to be making a record about you or with you, and it's a good this, that, and the other. I can't remember how very deliberately I was doing it, but certainly on a subconscious level, that makes complete sense. I was aware of how that shit worked, and I was aware that a tag was actually important, and whatever I put in the tag would become what people said. So Akira the Don, he's got clout, was a good one.
Sticks in my mind.
And you know what clout is? Clout is, you know, in this modern sort of 1 foot in extreme communist socialism and 1 foot in the other world, as Naval talks about quite a lot, clout is, I don't think he says clout, but he's talking about that. Clout is a currency. Greater than gold in our world, you know? Yeah,
information economy. All right, man, this has been great. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, de nada, hermano.
Spanish. I know a bit of Spanish. Not much.
Yeah, I know more than I did this time last year. De nada, hermano means you're welcome, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So chuck me this over when it's done. I'll disseminate.
Sure.
Send me over any clips or anything like that. I'll drop them on the Instagram and shit of that nature.
Awesome, man.
If you need anything, and thank you for being here, you bad motherfucker.
Thank you. I love your work, man. I really appreciate. I think you're doing great stuff. So, yeah, keep killing it, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. God bless.
Bye.